Evening guys, hope you're well. Hopefully I got round everyone today to remind you to watch the video for tomorrow's lesson. Again, we continue with Unit 1, which is the examination unit. Last week we looked at components of skill related fitness and components of physical fitness. Now we're going to discuss why fitness components are important for success in sport. So firstly, by having these different components of fitness, that allows you to physically meet the demands of the sport in order to reach maximum performance. When you look at aerobic endurance and muscular endurance, for example, if you're fit enough and your muscles can work for long enough for the period of time your sport is, therefore you're going to be able to perform to your maximum levels throughout. So fatigue will not be an issue. Also, relating to skill related fitness, if your agility, balance, coordination, power and reaction time is at its maximum, so you're on the peak of your physical condition of the skill related fitness, therefore it allows you to meet the demands of the sport in order for if you're a skier, be able to go down the slope as quickly as possible. If you're a footballer, being able to change direction quickly. If you're a triple jumper, being able to gain them extra yards due to your balance and agility when you're going forward in your hop and step phase. Physical components of fitness are also important as it allows you to perform efficiently and effectively again through that period of time. Yes, everyone has bad games, yes, everyone has bad tournaments, but if you're physically fit, if your components of physical fitness are at their peak and, like I say, at your strongest, that's going to have a positive effect if you say you're not having the greatest game in the world. You can be quiet for 89 minutes and all of a sudden you can pop up, you can be in the right place at the right time, ball falls, so you scored the goal and you could end up winning a World Cup or whatever. Another thing we're looking at is exercise intensity and how it can be determined. So there's different ways we can work out our exercise intensity. The first thing is obviously your intensity is being able to measure your heart rate and you apply your heart rate to training zones. Every person has a different heart rate. They have a different resting heart rate, have a different maximum heart rate. So therefore your training zones are different. How your heart rate works is it goes up in stages in percentiles. So for example, if you're wanting to burn fat and you're wanting to lose weight, a way to do this is by working at a minimum effort, so between 50 and 65% of your maximum heart rate. That's where you'll burn fat the most efficiently. If you're working at your maximum heart rate, which could be 140, 150, 160, 170, depending on how fit you are, or 180 plus, you can only work there for a small period of time. Like I say, if you're working at the minimum training threshold, which is 50 to 65%, you can work there for a prolonged period of time. If you work in your upper thresholds, your maximum training thresholds, you can only work there for a minimum period of time. And that's looking at your heart rate. We've just talked about training zones. They're also known as target zones and training thresholds. And to calculate this, you take your maximum heart rate and your years. So for example, for me, I reckon my maximum heart rate's 220. Take off my age, which is 28, my maximum heart rate is 202 beats per minute. So you would do the same. So you get 220 and you take off your age, and that's your maximum heart rate. So obviously the younger you are, the higher maximum heart rate, so therefore you should be able to work a little bit harder for that period of time. Being able to calculate your maximum heart rate also goes on percentiles, like I've said. And I remember I mentioned about the fat burning percentile, which is 50 to 65. To work in a training zone for cardiovascular health, you're looking at 60 to 85%. So the majority of your high and top elite level athletes will work their heart rate between 60 to 85%. So a footballer working for 90 minutes will work between that. Yes, their percentage might go up, say if they're sprinting for a ball and they have to do 2 or 3 sprints in a row, but predominantly the majority of the time they're working at 60 to 85% of their maximum heart rate. So remember, my maximum heart rate's 202. If I'm working at 85% of that, what's that? 10% is 22. So I'm probably working about 180. That's like in that threshold. You've also got another way to determine your exercise intensity is looking at the Borg scale, and this was introduced in 1970. And this is numbers. This is a 6 to 20 rating on perceived exertion. So how hard you're working during the time. So and it's measured on obviously the exercise that you do. So for example, if you're 6, that could be a walk or a very slow jog. If you're working at 20, that's high intensity training for a short period of time. So example, me and Mr. Logan. She's in the living room. Me and Mr. Logan on Friday night did a session called Sevens, where we did 8 different exercises for 7 minutes each with a sprint in between. So we did press ups, sprint, burpees, sprint, and length of gym constantly for 7 minutes. So therefore, we would probably be working towards the high teens on the Borg scale. So like I said, the 6 is very low intensity. The 20 is how hard you work, and such your perceived exertion, rating of exertion. So your 20 is your top in there. If we're relating that to your heart rate, your maximum heart rate, you're looking at, like I said, in your cardiovascular zone, you're working at your training zone, you're working at 60 to 85%. On the Borg scale, you'd be there about 14 onwards from there. And the last thing you need to know, especially for exercise intensity, is something called the application of the FITT principles to training regimes and exercise situations. What FITT is, it is how your basic principles of training. So it's looking at the FITT is broken down into four stages. So frequency, the F stands for frequency. That's the number of training sessions you complete over a period of time per week. So for me, for example, I have 1 day off a week, so I work for 6 days a week. Yes, I don't work at my maximum all the time, but majority of the time I am, so my frequency is very high. Your intensity, the I stands for intensity, how hard you work. Like I've just said there, I train 6 times a week, and probably in one of those sessions my intensity won't be as high as the other 5. The T, one of the T stands for time, so how long an interval, how long you will train for. And like I've said, if you're working at a really high intensity, the time that you work for is lower than if you're working at a lower intensity. If you're working at a low intensity, the time you work for is onwards of 60 minutes. If you're working for a high intensity, you're looking probably maximum 45 minutes. And the other T stands for type, and that's the type of training you do. You've got lots of different types of training, so your components of fitness will fit into that type of training. You have circuit training, which is high intensity, but then you have continuous training, which is working for a long period of time, so that will be going for a slow jog. You have fartlek training, which is another word for speed play, which is changing the speed at which you work and intensity again. And you could have interval training, again working for intervals of time and having time rest. Again, that's high intensity training. So the basic principles of training are you follow the FITT method, which is frequency, time, intensity and type. Hope you've watched the video, because this is what we're going to be talking about tomorrow, and I'm going to be sending you some exam questions away. Cheers.